Hey, everybody, welcome back to the channel that takes you deep inside the San Francisco 49ers. I am your host, Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hey, we have some new news regarding 49ers defensive end pass rusher Nick Bosa. New report coming out just moments ago from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. And we'll break it all down. We'll get into what Rap Sheet had to say. We'll talk about where the 49ers stand right now. This is big news, especially considering the 49ers will kick off the season in just a few days. We are now into game week, Sunday, week 1 of the San Francisco 49ers season, kicking off in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. A tough matchup as it is. If they don't have one of their best pass rushers, let's get into it right now. As reported by Ian Rappaport on NFL Network, this is what Rap Sheet had to say. Until there's a significant breakthrough, I do not expect Nick Bosa on the field for the San Francisco 49ers. This isn't really a question of if he's going to be the NFL's highest paid pass rusher. It sounds to me like they're already there, already past TJ Watt. That's not really what this is about. TJ Watt at $28 million on an average per year basis. This is about how close to Aaron Donald's $31 million and change does he get, or does he get over that? If he's not there Wednesday, obviously it would not bode well for him being able to participate in this week's game. If there's anyone whose resolve should never be in doubt, it is someone with the last name of Bosa. So there you have it, straight from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network earlier this afternoon, just a few minutes ago, coming on. And so we need to go ahead. We need to break this down and go through it. You know, I've been very upfront about my thoughts on where the 49ers need to go when it comes to their negotiations. Want to hit some of the questions over in the comment section as well. We got to hit up a couple of members of the toolbox to start off with. Luke Walsh says, hello, Mr. Hammer. Hey, Luke, good to have you on board. That's why he's got the $ next to his name. He's a member of the toolbox. We also have Randall, another member of the toolbox, says, let him know, Hammer. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to let him know. And then we've got Andrew H. says, Ian Rappaport doesn't know anything. He's just using vague, generic language. Well, let me tell you what's happening here. What the language that you're hearing Ian Rappaport say, yes, it's vague, it's generic, but it's also coming directly from either the 49ers or the agent of Nick Bosa. You look at these numbers, the fact that they're saying that, well, I think both sides are kind of negotiating through the media here. When I look at this, what I'm seeing is an organization who they're not in the right here. I don't think the 49ers organization is handling this correctly. You know, we went into this offseason. This is a team that everybody has said is a Super Bowl contender. Super Bowl contender. They're a win now team. This is it. They can't hold back any longer. They've got to get over the hump, all those types of things. And here you have the 49ers' best defensive player, not signed, likely to miss the start of the season because you're stuck in a contract stalemate at this point. You know, so let's just take ourselves back just a little bit. You know, when you go back to the beginning of this offseason, this was something that the 49ers knew was going to happen. And General Manager John Lynch said months ago that the team had budgeted for an extension for Bosa. All you can gauge right now is that they didn't budget properly. Again, as Rappaport says, this isn't about the $28 million on an average per year basis. It sounds like the 49ers are over that number already, but it's a matter of getting over 31.3, 31.4, whatever that number is for Aaron Donald. It's a little over $31 million. I think Nick Bosa is looking to get $32 to $35 million, closer to 35 right now, based on trying to help reset that pass rusher market, that defensive line market. And unless the 49ers get there, this isn't going to happen. You know, if we're real here for a second, the 49ers have a history in these situations of trying to win contract negotiations. And you know, I understand that you can win it and everybody comes out okay, but there's a lot of animosity and ill will that's built up in these, and then eventually it gets done. But I don't see Nick Bosa as being a guy who's going to just cave in unless he gets what he wants. And I think that's where Rap Sheet hit the nail on the head here, no pun intended. But when he says that when it comes to the resolve of a player never being in doubt, it is someone with the last name of Bosa, I mean, that's absolutely 100% correct. You know, you look at the 49ers history, like I said, George Kittle, Fred Warner, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, all contentious contract negotiations. We know the one with Williams, where the player had to actually call Kyle Shanahan, threatened to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs before Shanahan got involved with the team's contract negotiators, probably Parag Marathe, and they were finally able to give the tackle what he was looking for. And in this situation with Nick Bosa knows what his value is. Nick Bosa knows that he doesn't need the 49ers. He's got money in the bank already. He's already made a lot of money from San Francisco, and he's not going to show up until he gets what he feels he deserves, until he feels what he's worth. So, I've said this several times. I'll say it again. Nick Bosa, the 49ers need him a lot more than he needs them. And, this is just a situation where until the 49ers get to that number, he's not going to play. And the bigger issue in San Francisco is, again, they've told everybody that they're a team that's competing for the Super Bowl. But if you take a step back and you look at the last couple of years, they've been to the NFC Championship game. But part of the reason they haven't won it, other than the fact that their quarterback was injured last year, but they've had to go on the road both in 2021 and 2022 because of games they lost in the first half of the season that they shouldn't have lost. And right now you have the 49ers looking at one of their most important players, actually the most important player to their defense, and they're not getting the deal done. This is malpractice by the organization to not get the contract done for Nick Bosa in time for him to play week 1. If he does not play against Pittsburgh, it's on the organization because of the way that they handle these deals. They have to have known all along that this wasn't about getting over TJ Watt's money. It's been talked about for over a year. A former agent, Corey Joel, writes for CBS Sports. He wrote an article over a year ago, back during the 2021 season, going into that offseason, projecting what the contract was going to look like for Nick Bosa. And at that point, Joel even said that it's going to take about $35 million per year for Bosa's deal to get done based on his who he has for his agent and so on. So I just think this needs to get done, and they have to get the contract settled. And I think if Nick Bosa's not there, this is a team that is very, it's a good team all around. They have a lot of solid players, but there's a difference between being a Super Bowl team and having a solid, really like the best roster in the NFL. But when you say the Flyers have the best roster in the NFL, that also includes Nick Bosa. When Nick Bosa's not there, that's a big miss because he makes everything else around him so much better. Nick Bosa makes Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave better. You look at the 49ers pass rushers right now outside of Nick Bosa, and you're looking at Drake Jackson. You're looking at Clelin Ferrell. He's actually, I think he's better. And then you have Kerry Hyder Jr., who's, whatever. And you've got Austin Bryant, who's whatever. All four of those guys are really nice players if they're playing complementary pieces to Nick Bosa. But as the guys, no, they're not. They're, again, being a good player when you as a complementary piece is different than being a solid player when you don't have that other guy that's causing you trouble across from you. So I think the 49ers need to get this done. They need to be able to step up here and make the moves. Luke says a good study is Joey Bosa's contract holdouts with the Chargers. Parag Marathe doctrine of option clauses might be the hang-up, even if Parag is busy with leads limited. I think this is a different deal. I mean, similar in that it's going to be partially about the guaranteed money. But when you look at Joey Bosa's contract, Joey Bosa's holdout was his rookie year. His rookie contract was when Joey Bosa had the holdout. It wasn't later on. Joey Bosa's holdout was as a rookie. When it came time for him to get his extension, the Chargers already knew what they were working with. They knew that they needed to get those numbers to be to a certain area, and they got him there, and they got the player signed. The 49ers, they should have known the same thing. They've known, again, they've said they budgeted for this thing. If they didn't budget $35 million for Nick Bosa or 32 plus for Nick Bosa, then they have something broken over there, because everybody watching the NFL, whether you're the most basic fan who just barely watches Nick Bosa and the 49ers, or you're somebody who is really dialed in with the team and the league and everything else, knew that Nick Bosa didn't care about being higher than TJ Watt, that it was about being the highest paid defensive lineman, period, more than Aaron Donald. And right now, where the 49ers are just sitting here with major egg on their face with where this is going in these negotiations. The Stivers, Gabe Stivers, are you doing a show with Rob tonight? No show tonight. Rob had some things going on. So I'm just jumping on really quick with this update. Rob and I have been in talking, though we're going to get together soon. Randall Bosa knows what a team likely would pay him. So whether it's true or not, I have no idea, but he thinks so and is betting on it. And I think so too. And I was on earlier today with Rob Guerrera, and we did a lot of talking on this Bosa situation. And the 49ers are in a tough spot because if they don't get this deal done, it's only going to get harder, especially if they go into it and they start losing games. That's just not a good spot for them to be where they are. Gold-blooded, all this blame being thrown around. None of you have a clue on what's really going on. How do we know what Bosa is asking for? Doesn't have to be about money. Stop it, Jack. It's always about money, gold-blooded. What else is it about? He doesn't need, doesn't need a private jet. They're not going to give him all that kind of stuff. It's about the money. If you don't think it's about the money, you're kidding yourself. It's about the money. Whether it's the full form of the contract or the guaranteed or whatever it is, it's about the money. All these contracts in the NFL are about money. It's all about money with NFL contracts. And so I'm not sure where you think it's about anything other than the money, but it's about the money somewhere. And we are now Monday of game week. 49ers held a practice today. No Nick Bosa, obviously, just like he hasn't been there throughout. And, I think AC/DC said it best, like Cosmo Points right here. Money talks. BS walks. AC/DC said that in their song, Money Talks, right? Money talks, BS walks. You guys can know the rest of it if you want to add in the other stuff. But they need to get this done. Luke Walsh says PTSD with D Ford, Jet McKinnon contracts. Hey, here's the thing. Maybe a little bit, but those guys were guys who you didn't know. You didn't know who D Ford was. You didn't know Jarek McKinnon. Those were free agents coming off the street from another team. Nick Bosa has been in your organization now since 2019. You know what Nick Bosa is all about. And on top of that, Nick Bosa has only missed one game for you, other than in 2020 when he tore up his knee on a terrible field out in New York that also had other players on your team go down and has been known to be one of the worst fields in the NFL. Other than that, Nick Bosa has missed one game. So the D4 deal, he had injuries long before the 49ers gave him that contract. Jarek McKinnon, I don't think he had the injury issues there. So I'm not really exactly sure what's going on. But I do just, looking at this thing, it is simple. You knew what the deal was going to be, and you got to make the deal. That's it. You know it around that area. Okay, guys, nobody knows what Bosa is asking for or what the farmers are offering. He could be holding up because of guarantees, total value, both, etc. Okay, regardless, Nathan, guaranteed money, total value money. It's about the money. And I almost can guarantee you that it's not just about the guarantees. Nick Bosa doesn't need to play for anything less than $32 million. Nick Bosa is the best player on the 49ers defense. Nick Bosa is the defensive player of the year from last season, which means he was the best defensive player in the NFL last season. That award kind of sometimes will go into just not last year, but the year before. Look at Nick Bosa's last 2 years. 15.5 sacks in 2021, 18.5 sacks last year. Nick Bosa is an upward trending player who's only 25. He's going to be 26 this year. He's entering his prime earning years. He has no reason to take anything less than be the top guy on the market because, quite frankly, over the last 2 years, he's been the top guy in the NFL when it comes to rushing the passer. And when you look at the NFL, there's a couple of things that take place. There's two positions. that are where you want to pay top dollar. Number one, quarterback. Your quarterbacks are always going to be paid the most because the NFL is mostly a passing league, and those guys that can do that at the highest level get paid the highest. Number two, it's about getting after that quarterback. And getting after the quarterback isn't the corners, it's not the safeties. Pass rushing and the pass rushers are what drive your defense, especially when it comes to sacks, when it comes to everything. Here's the thing that my belief has always been that you get your interceptions and you get your fumbles on defense because of your pass rush. You put pressure on the quarterback. Putting pressure on the quarterback is going to make him want to get the ball out of his hands quicker. It doesn't even have to be because of a sack, but if you're pressuring him and you're hitting him, what's going to happen is he's going to want to get the ball out quicker. The quicker he gets the ball out, the more it helps everybody else. And also, if he's trying to get the ball out of his hands, especially if you've been hitting him a lot, that leads to mistakes, and those mistakes end up in your defender's hands. I think that's a big part of the reason why when you look at the defense last season, the 49ers had 20 interceptions. That was the most that they've had under Kyle Shanahan during this time that he's been here since 2017. 20 interceptions. Coming into last year, their best was 12. Part of that helps that you have two guys at the back end who know how to catch the ball in Tayshaun Gibson and Talanoa Hufanga, right? Those guys, big improvement over what they had prior. And so you've got to get out. You've got to get after it. And we look at the quarterback hits on this roster last season. Nick Bosa had 48. Aside from Nick Bosa's 48 sacks or hits, the next closest was 16. That was Charles Omenihu, 16. 48 to 16. Nick Bosa had 3 times as many quarterback hits as the next closest player on your roster. You look at the 49ers sack numbers from last season, 18 and a half sacks for Nick Bosa. Samson Ebukam was your next closest, and he was at 5. So we look at there's been so much discussion about the pass rusher opposite of Nick Bosa, how they've got to get better, all this stuff. Samson Ebukam had the second most sacks on the 49ers last year at 5. Charles Omenihu, 4.5. Drake Jackson was 4th on the team. He only played 15 games, didn't start a single one. He had 3 sacks, and he was 4th on the team last year. You look at the guys who have replaced them. You look at Clelin Ferrell. I think his high as a career is 4.5 or 5. Austin Bryant, right around that same number. Kerry Hyder had that one season of 8.5 for the 49ers, but I don't see him ever getting back to that number again. And, yes, they added Javon Hargrave in the offseason, but Javon Hargrave had a great year last year in Philly, 11 sacks. But I think people don't realize is Javon Hargrave in his career, he's only been over 7.5 sacks one time in his career total. The 49ers gave Javon Hargrave $21 million a year, and he's only had one season where he has double-digit sacks. That was last year. Other than that, Javon Hargrave is a 7.5 or lower sack guy. Eric Armstead has 1 year with big sack numbers. That happened to be in 2019 when Nick Bosa was on one of those edges, and he had DeForest Buckner next to him. So the hope is that you're going to have better interior play from Hargrave and Eric Armstead. Well, that doesn't happen if you don't have Nick Bosa on the edge, because Nick Bosa on the edge forces teams to then maybe leave those interior guys one-on-one. And if those interior guys are one-on-one, they can win those battles. But if Nick Bosa's not there, they're not gonna see the one-on-one matchups, and I can tell you why. Drake Jackson, if Drake Jackson, he's not a very good pass rusher. The 49ers want him to be, but he's not. All you have to do is turn on the film of his game against the Los Angeles Chargers from 2 Fridays ago. In that game, he is getting stopped by the backup left tackle and right tackle of the Chargers. And that's the guy that you're going to go into week 1 as one of your starters. That's just not going to cut it. And, Randall makes a good point. 49ers want to be cheap asses at quarterback and defensive line. Maybe the owner should go buy a team in the CFL if they want to be so cheap. Well, cheap asses at quarterback. I think that's the thing, man. They're being cheap at quarterback, right? They're paying under $900,000 for the quarterback. you got to spend the money somewhere. Give it to Nick Bosa. There's ways that you can structure this contract over a 5 to 6 year period that are going to make it work. And then you also have that, you've got to give him the guaranteed money because Bosa's not stupid. He needs to make sure that he's going to get his. But then you also have that ability to come in and restructure this thing as you go through and put more money in his pocket. And by putting more money in his pocket, what you're doing is you're giving back to everybody else. That's why I disagree extremely with what BDiana says here. Bosa stealing money from other teammates. I disagree. This is the stealing money from other teammates angle is that's 100% like team speak. Like we've got to keep the money so that we can give it to everybody else. That's just not it. That's not it. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They gave Patrick Mahomes $50 million a year or 45, whatever the number is, right? But they're still able to make it work, partly because he's a really good quarterback. But the other reason is because they move his money around and they do get the other guys their money. They can totally get this thing done. And, what we're seeing right now is what we see a lot of times. We also have Pernell Mori says, okay, well, Bosa is just greedy. Bosa, I'm 100%. One of the things you'll notice about me is that I am 100% on the player side in the NFL when it comes to getting paid. When it comes to getting paid, I'm on the player side because these guys have a short lifespan, a short shelf life, I should say, when it comes to being in the NFL and being able to make the big money. And they need to go ahead and they need to get this done. Luke Walsh says, crazy thought and unlikely scenario. New 17-game schedule might be making Friars think if we extend later, Nick will be fresher for the playoffs. And that's okay. If that's what they think, they're wrong. And I think I mentioned it already, but I'll mention it again. By not getting Nick Bosa in and thinking, well, by doing this, he's going to be fresher for the playoffs. I heard this. I think Kyle Shanahan made a flip remark about this on Friday while he was on KNBR. Here's the thing, though. You've consistently lost games in the first half of the season, which is why you've been on the road to Los Angeles in 2021 in the NFC Championship game, to Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game last season. It should be no surprise to anybody. The home team in the NFC Championship games wins at a rate of like 70%, 75%. So the 49ers are shooting themselves. If this is the 49ers thinking, they don't deserve to win the Super Bowl because they're not going to get there anyway because they're going to have this, it's just not going to work out. This situation reminds me a lot of the situation with Emmitt Smith with the Cowboys. I think that was 95 when he had his holdout. It all worked out for them. They were able, they kind of slogged their way through, and then they got to the NFC Championship game, but they were playing at home against the 49ers. And they kicked the 49ers' ass, and that's actually, they didn't play the 49ers that year because the Niners had gotten beat by the Packers earlier on in the playoffs. But still, I just don't see this as being a situation that plays in the 49ers' favor. If this is their thinking and what they're in the wrong business. The NFL, you only have 17 games, and it is only 17. Every game counts so much. Luke says, players should not be criticized for practicing the same due diligence as owners and managers do. Absolutely not. And I think that's the biggest thing when I see the comments about how Bosa's not worth the money, Bosa's this, Bosa's that, all these kind of things. The NFL owners have the NFL in general has their fans needing their product so much that the owners are more powerful than the players. They just really are. The owners, they have so much power. So the only leverage that players have over the owners is to not show up. That's really it, is to show up, not be paid. Like the strike year, right? I mean, the strike, when you go back and you look at the strike, especially in 82 or the one in 87. In 87, the player's like, hey, we're gonna strike. We don't. And the NFL said, well, that's fine. We'll go play games without you. We'll get other guys. And people still watch the games. They actually counted. So Michael Miller says, you posted something saying that Bosa was not worth it. Michael, I did. That was the title. You need to watch the show, because my show wasn't about that. My show was about the reason the title said that Bosa was not worth it was because that was the lead-in to the discussion, because somebody in a mailbag had told me that Nick Bosa wasn't worth it, and to prove them wrong. So I used that as the title. But if you watch the video, you'll see that the entire video is, at least the part about Bosa, is me saying that the 49ers need to get this deal done, that he's 100% worth it. Went through all of the reasons why, most of which I've restated to some degree now. But I find this entire thing wild, that the 49ers are trying to do this with Nick Bosa. He's just not like these other guys who are going to put up with maybe taking a little bit less. Again, this is what Ian Rappaport said regarding the negotiations between the 49ers and Nick Bosa. Until there's a significant breakthrough, I do not expect Nick Bosa on the field for the San Francisco 49ers. This isn't really a question of if he is going to be the highest paid pass rusher in the NFL. It sounds to me like they are already there, already past TJ Watt. That's not really what this is about. TJ Watt at $28 million on an average per year basis. This is about how close to Aaron Donald's $31 million and change does he get, or does he get over? If he's not there Wednesday, obviously it would not bode well for him being able to participate in this week's game. If there's anyone who's resolved, you should never doubt it is someone with the last name Bosa. And again, on that last piece, I think that's the biggest one right there. Nick Bosa doesn't need the 49ers. He just doesn't. Nick Bosa does not need the 49ers. The 49ers need Nick Bosa. If the 49ers think they are a Super Bowl team, they're going to show their fans what they believe they are with how they handle this situation. If they continue to let this linger, if they lose games as a result of not having Nick Bosa on the field, they are telling you that they aren't valuing winning a Super Bowl. As crazy as that sounds, that's what they're telling you. And it goes back to kind of like that comment from Luke, who was asking the question about, maybe letting him be more healthy and fresher for the postseason. Well, I'm telling you, they need Nick Bosa if they're going to get there. Get his money, give him 32, give him 35 million. You can make it work. The difference between 32 and 35, that's nothing. And I'm telling you, here's the main thing when it comes to the NFL and the salary cap and all of these things. There are ways to do almost anything you want with a salary cap. Yes, at some point you need to pay the piper, but you can shuffle money around. It's all about what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do as a team to win a Super Bowl? What are you willing to do to keep a player? If you really want to keep him, if you really want that guy to be a member of your team, you are going to make sure that it gets done. Luke Walsh says, Eddie D would have given Nick Bosa a small island as a signing bonus. Okay, he would have. And here's the thing, and this isn't a shot at Luke or anything, but the thing is, the NFL is different now. Eddie DeBartolo would have given a small island to Nick bonus or to Nick Bosa as a signing bonus, but that's not what the team is. That's not the NFL anymore. I think people forget that once the NFL salary cap was instituted in 1994, Eddie DeBartolo's biggest strength was taken away from him. He can no longer just overspend, because that's what he did. He just spent his money. Well, then he had to get smart. He didn't have the right people there. So it's a balancing act, but you can still make it work. If you're willing to spend the money, you can still make it work. You've got to make common sense decisions towards the ends of careers with extensions and those types of things, but you can make this work and you could kick the can down the road. Nick Bosa's only 26 this season. He's going to turn 26. If he's here for another 10 years, you can continue to make him a bunch of money. And I agree with you. Salary cap, even Carmen policy was in trouble. You are 100% right, Luke. 100% right. And I understand you were, I wasn't trying to take a shot at you. Hopefully you understood that. Michael Miller says, sign BA, sign Brand Ayuk. Well, I think that's going to happen next year. What happens with Bosa could have a little bit to do with it, but I don't think it's. I think they can get both. Really do. So. David says Jack only promotes members. No respect to subscribers. I just unsubbed to act like Bosa. Okay. That's fine. Everybody has a choice. Nobody says you have to be here. I love everybody that takes the time to tune in. You guys can tell me when I'm wrong. I can tell you when I don't agree with you. It goes both ways. That's fine. And if you don't, then I guess you go ahead and you can hold out from the show. It's groovy. And Rusty Shackelford says, trade Nick. Done. Luke says, I have to have thicker skin if I want to hang out with A gearheads. And I missed something over here with, yeah, this is right. Cowboys and the Niners had dream teams because there was no cap back then. In a lot, right? 92 and 93, 94, those were the golden years, right? 90, all of a sudden, the salary cap came in. The 49ers won in 94. Cowboys won in 95. How many Super Bowls has either of those teams won in that period? Cowboys haven't even made it back since the second year of the salary cap. So, yeah, the salary cap changed everything. We can have an entire show on Luke's comment, not on Luke's comment in particular, but about Eddie DeBartolo and some of the things there. So, and we're going to end up on this one because I think this is great. Randall says, "You're wrong, Jack." There, I feel better now. Hey, there you go. There you go. Davis says, "Calm down, fools. I was just kidding, Davis. It's okay. It's okay. We're having fun. If you look at it, even got guys with the says, I'm not sure what you're wrong about, but you're wrong, gives you the laughing face. Hey, hey, I come on here and I'm loud and I give you my opinion and I tell you exactly what I think. And I'll tell you if I feel like you're wrong. You can tell me when you feel like I'm wrong. We go back and forth, but at the end of the day, it's all good. And I appreciate everybody for taking the time to watch. Let's do this. Nick Bosa, get the deal done, San Francisco. You need to get this guy in. If you want to win the Super Bowl, get Nick Bosa signed. Plain and simple. You're going to win games. You could be a playoff team, but you're not a Super Bowl team without number 97 on the field. So there you have it. Take it for what's worth, everybody. Hit that like button for me if you could. Also, if you can take a few moments after you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and then make sure you turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the updates right here on Inside the 4 with Jack Hammer. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be talking with you soon. Take care, everybody. Like,